The patrol ship Vengeance cut through the darkness of space like a silver knife. Commander Zethka pressed his four-clawed hands against the control panel and watched the stars drift past the viewing window. 15 years had passed since the humans vanished from the galaxy, and things had been peaceful ever since. The Galactic Council ruled over 7 major alien species without the chaos that humans always seemed to bring wherever they went. Zethka belonged to the Viridian Empire, a race of tall blue-skinned beings with sharp minds and sharper claws. His crew of 20 moved efficiently around the bridge, checking sensors and monitoring communication channels. They were conducting a routine patrol near the old human colony of New Terra, a dead world that had been abandoned when every human in the galaxy simply disappeared overnight. The sensor officer, a young Viridian named Klexdu, suddenly straightened in his chair. His yellow eyes widened as he stared at his display screen. "Commander, I am detecting unusual energy signatures near the third moon of New Terra." Zethka moved to the sensor station with smooth, predatory grace. His people had evolved from hunters, and even in the advanced technological age they maintained their sharp instincts. "What kind of energy signatures?" "They appear to be human in origin, sir." The bridge fell silent. Every crew member turned to stare at Klexdu as if he had announced the return of the dead. In many ways he had. No human had been seen anywhere in the galaxy for 15 years. The Galactic Council had sent investigation teams to every known human colony and found them all empty, with no signs of violence or struggle. The humans had simply vanished. "Are you certain?" Zethka asked, his voice low and dangerous. KLX-Do checked his readings 3 times before nodding. "The energy pattern matches human fusion technology. There is a small object drifting near the moon. It appears to be damaged." Zethka made his decision quickly. "Set course for the object. Maximum speed." The Vengeance accelerated toward the mysterious signal. As they approached, the main viewing screen showed a small escape pod floating in space. Its hull was scarred and blackened, as if it had been through a terrible battle. Human markings were clearly visible on its side, along with the name Horizons. "Edge." "Commander," the communications officer called out, "I am detecting a weak life sign inside the pod." "Bring it aboard," Zethka ordered. "Full containment protocols." The escape pod was pulled into the cargo bay by tractor beam. Zethka and his security team waited in full armor as the bay doors sealed and atmosphere was restored. The pod's hatch opened with a hiss of escaping air, and a figure stumbled out. It was a human male, probably in his 30s, with brown hair and tired blue eyes. He wore the uniform of a human space explorer, though it was torn and stained. The man looked around at the alien faces surrounding him and raised his hand slowly. "I am Lieutenant Jake Morrison of the Human Exploration Service," he said in the common galactic language. "I surrender myself to your custody." Zethka studied the human carefully. Jake Morrison appeared weak and exhausted, but there was something in his eyes that made the Viridian commander uneasy. Humans had always been unpredictable, and this one had somehow survived 15 years after his entire species vanished. "You will come with us to the medical bay," Zethka said. "Then you will answer questions." Jake nodded and allowed himself to be escorted through the ship. The medical officer, Dr. Yexna, examined him thoroughly and declared him to be in poor health but not dangerous. After receiving medical treatment and a meal, Jake was brought to the interrogation chamber. Zeth Ka sat across from the human at a metal table. 2 guards stood by the door, their weapons ready. "Tell me, Lieutenant Morrison, where have you been for the past 15 years? Jake took a deep breath and began his story. "I was part of a deep space research mission led by Captain Lisa Hammond. We were aboard the exploration vessel Horizon's Edge, investigating strange energy readings at the edge of the galaxy. Our mission began 3 months before the Great Silence." "The Great Silence?" Zethka asked. "That is what we called it," Jake explained. "One day, every human colony and fleet in known space received the same message. It came from Admiral Patricia Cole herself, head of human colonial defense. The message was simple: return home immediately, tell no one." Maintain silence, Zethka leaned forward. The Galactic Council had wondered for years what had happened to humanity. And did your ship return home? Jake shook his head. Captain Hammond made the decision to continue our mission. We were too far out to make it back in time, and she believed our research was too important to abandon. Dr. Amanda Foster, our chief scientist, had been studying the energy readings for weeks. She said they were not natural phenomena. What were they? Traces of dimensional technology, Jake said quietly. Someone or something had been experimenting with the fabric of space itself. Dr. Foster believed the readings were connected to humanity's disappearance. Zethka felt a chill run down his spine. Dimensional technology was theoretical at best. Even the most advanced species in the galaxy had only managed to scratch the surface of such concepts. Continue. Jake's eyes grew distant as he remembered. We followed the energy trail for months, moving deeper into unexplored space. Captain Hammond pushed the ship and crew to their limits. She was determined to find answers. Then we found them. What did you find? Evidence that humanity had been watched, Jake said. Monitored and studied by something ancient and powerful. Dr. Foster discovered sensor networks hidden throughout human space. Technology so advanced that it had been completely invisible to us. Whatever had been watching us was older than any species in the Galactic Council. Zethka processed this information. If Jake was telling the truth, then humanity's disappearance was not voluntary. They had been taken by something beyond current understanding. What happened to your ship? The Horizon's Edge was attacked when we got too close to the source of the energy readings, Jake said. Captain Hammond ordered all hands to the escape pods. I was unconscious when my pod launched. When I woke up, I was alone in space with minimal life support. I have been drifting for weeks, maybe months. Time becomes meaningless when you are alone in the dark. And the rest of your crew? Jake's face showed pain. I do not know. I hope some of them survived, but I saw the ship explode. Captain Hammond went down with it, as did Dr. Foster and the others. Zethka stood and paced around the room. If the human was telling the truth, then something had taken an entire species, but why? And where had they been taken? Do you have any idea where your people went? Jake looked up at the Viridian commander with an expression that was both hopeful and terrifying. I think I do. But you are not going to like the answer. Tell me. They did not go anywhere, Jake said slowly. They became something else, Doctor. Foster's final research suggested that humans were being prepared for transformation. The beings that took us wanted to change us into something new, something that had never existed before in the galaxy. Zethka felt his blood turn cold. The idea that an entire species could be transformed was beyond horrifying. It suggested a level of technology and power that made the Galactic Council look like children playing with toys. Transformed into what? Jake met his eyes with a steady gaze. I do not know yet. But I think we are about to find out. Dr. Foster believed that the transformation would take 15 years to complete. If she was right, then humanity should be returning soon. Returning as what? As something the galaxy has never seen before, Jake said quietly. Something that will change everything. Commander Zethka ordered Jake Morrison to be given quarters on his ship while he contacted the Galactic Council. The news that a human had been found alive sent shockwaves through the 7 ruling species. Within hours, representatives from each major alien government were demanding to speak with the human survivor. Jake sat in his small room aboard the Vengeance and remembered the final days before the Great Silence began. He closed his eyes and let his mind drift back to those terrible last weeks when everything changed for humanity. Admiral Patricia Cole had been a legend among human military forces. She commanded respect from every colony and fleet in human space. Jake remembered seeing her on the news broadcasts, her silver hair always perfectly arranged and her green eyes sharp with intelligence. When Admiral Cole spoke, humans listened. The message that started everything had come through official channels on a Tuesday morning. Jake had been aboard the Horizon's Edge for 2 months by then, working under Captain Lisa Hammond to investigate. the strange energy readings that Dr. Amanda Foster had discovered. The ship had been at the very edge of known space when the communication arrived. Captain Hammond had gathered the entire crew in the main briefing room. She was a tall woman with dark skin and kind eyes, but that day her face showed worry and confusion. She activated the main display screen and Admiral Cole's image appeared before them. "All human vessels and colonies are ordered to return to Earth immediately," Admiral Cole said in the recorded message. "This is not a drill. Abandon all current missions and report to your nearest human command center. Do not communicate with alien species about this order. Maintain complete silence about your movements. This is a matter of species survival." The crew had stared at the screen in shocked silence. Dr. Foster, a small woman with bright red hair and quick hands, was the first to speak. "Captain, our mission is too important to abandon now. We are close to a breakthrough." Captain Hammond had studied the message carefully. "The Admiral's orders are clear, but we are 3 months away from the nearest human station. By the time we return, whatever crisis has occurred will be over." Dr. Foster stood up from her chair and activated her research display. "Captain, I believe our mission is directly connected to this crisis. The energy readings we have been tracking show signs of massive technological activity. Someone has been using advanced science to manipulate space itself in this region." Jake remembered how Dr. Foster's hands had moved quickly over her control panel, bringing up data charts and energy pattern displays. She had been working day and night for weeks, trying to understand what they had discovered. "Look at these patterns," Dr. Foster continued. "They are not random. Someone has been conducting experiments with dimensional technology on a scale that should be impossible. The energy signatures suggest manipulation of space-time itself." Captain Hammond studied the data carefully. She was not a scientist, but she understood the implications. "Are you saying that someone has technology advanced enough to affect an entire region of space?" "Yes," Dr. Foster said. "And based on the timeline of these experiments, they have been active for at least 20 years, long enough to study every human colony and fleet in detail." The ship's communications officer, Lieutenant Ben Carter, had been monitoring long-range signals during their conversation. He suddenly turned from his station with a pale face. "Captain, I am picking up scattered reports from the outer colonies. It appears that human settlements are abandoning their worlds without explanation." Jake shifted in his chair aboard the Viridian ship as he remembered the growing sense of dread that had filled the horizon's edge. Captain Hammond had made the decision to continue their mission despite Admiral Cole's orders. She believed that finding the source of the energy readings was more important than following evacuation protocols. Dr. Foster had worked with the ship's other scientist, Dr. Paul Garcia, to analyze the data they had collected. Dr. Garcia was an expert in consciousness research, a field that had become important to humanity as they began to understand how minds could interface with advanced technology. He was a quiet man with gray hair and gentle eyes, but his intelligence was remarkable. "Amanda," Dr. Garcia had said, during one of their late-night research sessions, "these energy patterns suggest something beyond simple technology. The readings show signs of consciousness manipulation." Dr. Foster had looked up from her work with surprise. "What do you mean?" "The energy signatures include neural pattern components," Dr. Garcia explained. "Someone has been experimenting with the connection between mind and matter. They are not just manipulating space, they are manipulating awareness itself." Jake remembered how that revelation had changed everything for the crew. The idea that an unknown force could manipulate consciousness was terrifying. It suggested that humanity's thoughts and memories could be controlled by advanced alien technology. Captain Hammond had ordered increased security measures and communication blackouts to prevent their minds from being monitored. She worked with Dr. Helen Brooks, the ship's psychologist, to develop mental protection techniques for the crew. Dr. Brooks was a wise woman with long brown hair and a calm voice that could soothe even the most frightened crew member. She had studied human psychology for decades and understood how minds could be influenced by external forces. "If someone is monitoring human consciousness," she told Captain Hammond, "then our thoughts are not private. We must assume that everything we think and feel is being observed." The horizon's edge had continued deeper into unexplored space for another month. The energy readings grew stronger each day, and Dr. Foster's excitement increased along with them. She believed they were close to finding the source of the mysterious technology. Then they had encountered the Watchers. Jake opened his eyes in his quarters aboard the Vengeance as he remembered that terrible day. The Watchers had been unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. They were not ships or stations, but living technology that existed beyond normal space. When the horizon's edge finally located the source of the energy readings, they found structures that defied understanding. The Watchers had been studying humanity for decades, learning everything about human culture, technology, and psychology, but they were not interested in conquest or destruction. They wanted something far more disturbing. They wanted to preserve humanity by transforming them into something new. Dr. Foster had managed to decrypt some of their communications before the attack began. The Watchers called themselves collectors, and they had been gathering information about interesting species throughout the galaxy for millions of years. But humanity was different from other species they had studied. Humans were chaotic and unpredictable in ways that fascinated the collectors. While other species followed logical patterns and remained stable for thousands of years, humans constantly changed and adapted. The collectors wanted to capture that adaptability and preserve it forever. Jake stood up from his chair and walked to the small window in his quarters. The stars looked the same as they always had, but he knew that everything was about to change. The 15 years that humanity had been missing were almost over, and if Dr. Foster's research was correct, they would return as something the galaxy had never seen before. The transformation was nearly complete. 3 days after Jake Morrison was brought aboard the Vengeance, the long-range sensors detected something that made every alien species in the galaxy tremble with fear. Massive structures were appearing at the edge of known space, emerging from dimensional rifts that tore open like wounds in reality itself. Commander Zethka stood on his bridge and watched the sensor displays with growing alarm. The structures were enormous, larger than entire space stations, and they moved with purpose toward the center of the galaxy. But what terrified him most was their design. They were clearly human in origin, yet unlike anything humanity had ever built before. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we are receiving a transmission from the lead structure. It is requesting permission to speak with the Galactic Council." Zethka felt his 4 hearts beating rapidly. "Put it through." The main viewing screen flickered to life and a human face appeared. It was a woman with short blonde hair and eyes that seemed to glow with an inner light. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that suggested she was speaking through advanced technology. "I am Captain Nicole Parker of the Human Collective Fleet," she said. "We request immediate audience with the representatives of the Galactic Council. We have important information to share about the threat facing all species in this galaxy." Zethka stepped forward. "I am Commander Zethka of the Viridian Empire. Where have your people been for the past 15 years? Captain Parker's expression remained calm, but there was something different about her features. Her skin seemed to shimmer slightly, and her movements were too smooth, too precise. "We have been preparing for what is coming. The Watchers will arrive soon, and when they do, every species in this galaxy will face extinction unless we work together." Within hours, representatives from all 7 major alien species had gathered aboard the neutral station called Unity Point. Jake Morrison was brought as a witness to the proceedings, still wearing his old human uniform, but now looking even more out of place among the transformed humans who had arrived. The meeting chamber was filled with tension as alien leaders faced the human delegation. Admiral Danny Taylor led the human group, a tall man with silver hair and the same strange glow in his eyes that Captain Parker had displayed. Beside him stood Dr. Lavra Smith, A woman whose entire presence seemed to pulse with contained energy. Jake stared at his fellow humans in amazement and fear. They looked like the people he remembered, but everything about them had changed. They moved with perfect coordination, spoke with voices that carried multiple tones, and their eyes showed intelligence that seemed beyond normal human capacity. 15 years ago, Admiral Taylor began, humanity discovered that we were being studied by ancient beings called the Watchers. These entities have existed for millions of years, collecting and preserving interesting species throughout the galaxy. But preservation to them means transformation into static displays for their cosmic museum. The alien representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The Zephyrian delegate, a being made of crystalline structures, spoke first. You claim these Watchers threatened humanity. Where is your proof? Dr. Smith stepped forward and activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. The images showed massive biomechanical structures moving through space, consuming entire star systems and leaving nothing behind but emptiness. This is footage from our deep space monitoring stations, Dr. Smith explained. The Watchers have been moving through distant galaxies for eons, cataloging and collecting every form of intelligent life they encounter. They preserve what they find interesting and destroy what they consider mundane. Jake watched as the hologram showed worlds being stripped of all life, their populations somehow extracted and stored within the Watcher vessels. The technology involved was beyond anything he could understand, but the results were clear. Entire civilization simply ceased to exist. Admiral Taylor continued the presentation. Humanity was selected for collection because of our adaptability. The Watchers had never encountered a species that changed and evolved as rapidly as we do. They wanted to preserve that quality for their collection. The Viridian representative, General Kex Prime, leaned forward in his chair. So you ran away and hid for 15 years? No, Admiral Taylor said firmly. We transformed ourselves into something the Watchers could not predict or control. The process required us to evolve beyond our original biological limitations while maintaining the essence of what makes us human. Dr. Smith activated another display that showed the transformation process. Jake watched in fascination as the hologram demonstrated how human consciousness had been merged with quantum technology, creating beings that could think and react at superhuman speeds while retaining their creativity and emotional depth. We are still human, Dr. Smith explained. But we are also something new. Our minds are linked through quantum networks that allow us to share knowledge and coordinate actions instantly. Our bodies have been enhanced to interface directly with technology. We can adapt to any situation faster than any force in the galaxy. Engineer Katie Wells, a young woman whose hair seemed to shimmer with electronic patterns, demonstrated their new abilities. She touched a control panel and the entire chamber's lighting system responded to her thoughts, creating patterns of color that matched her emotional state. Our technology now grows and evolves in real time, Katie explained. Our ships, our tools, our cities all adapt to changing circumstances without conscious direction. We have become a species that embodies change itself. President Stephen Moore, the elected leader of the new human collective, stood to address the alien assembly. He was an older man whose presence filled the room with calm authority, but Jake could see circuits of light moving beneath his skin. We did not return to conquer or to rule, President Moore said. We came back to offer alliance and protection. The Watchers are coming to this galaxy, and when they arrive, they will collect every species they find interesting and destroy the rest. Only by working together can we hope to survive their arrival. The alien representatives began talking among themselves in their various languages. Jake could see fear in their expressions as they realized the magnitude of the threat they faced. Their comfortable existence under Galactic Council rule was about to end. General Chris Johnson, a broad-shouldered man whose eyes glowed with tactical awareness, provided military analysis. Our deep space scouts have confirmed that the Watcher fleet is only months away from this galaxy. They move slowly because they are thorough, cataloging everything they encounter. But once they arrive, Resistance will be nearly impossible without preparation. Jake finally found his voice and stood up from his observer's chair. Admiral Taylor, what happened to the crew of the Horizon's Edge? Are Captain Hammond and Dr. Foster still alive? Admiral Taylor turned to look at Jake with expression that was both sad and hopeful. Many of those who stayed behind to fight the Watchers were lost, including your captain and doctor. But their sacrifice gave us the time we needed to complete the transformation. They are remembered in our collective consciousness, and their knowledge lives on in our shared memory. The chamber fell silent as everyone absorbed the implications of what they had heard. Humanity had returned, but not as the chaotic and unpredictable species the aliens remembered. They had become something unprecedented in galactic history, a force of pure adaptation that could evolve faster than any threat. President Moore concluded the presentation with words that would echo through galactic history. The Watchers believe that all species eventually become static and predictable. They have never encountered a race that chooses to continuously evolve. Together we can show them that life is not meant to be preserved in stasis, but to grow and change and become something greater than it was before. The transformation of humanity was complete, and the galaxy would never be the same. 2 weeks after the meeting at Unity Point, the worst fears of every species in the galaxy became reality. The Watchers arrived at the outer edge of the star system called Kepler, and their presence changed everything forever. Commander Zethka stood on the bridge of his upgraded vessel and watched the sensor displays with growing horror. The Watcher ships were not like anything in his military database. They appeared to be grown rather than built, with organic curves that pulsed with inner light. Each vessel was the size of a small moon, and there were dozens of them moving in perfect formation. Jake Morrison had been transferred to the human flagship called the Ascendant Dawn, where he served as a liaison between the old human military and the new human collective. Standing beside Admiral Danny Taylor on the bridge, Jake felt small and primitive compared to the transformed humans around him. The main viewing screen showed the lead Watcher vessel as it approached the inhabited worlds of the Kepler system. Its surface writhed with biomechanical components that seemed alive, and energy patterns flowed across its hull like glowing veins. When it spoke, its voice filled every communication channel in the system simultaneously. I am Supreme Collector. Vex Prime of the Eternal Preserve, the voice announced. It sounded like a chorus of different beings speaking together, creating harmonies that were both beautiful and terrifying. The species of this galaxy have been observed and catalogued. Those deemed worthy will be collected for eternal preservation. Those found lacking will be recycled into base matter. The alien governments panicked immediately. Commander Zethka received frantic communications from Viridian High Command, ordering him to surrender rather than resist. The other species sent similar messages to their fleets, but the human ships did not retreat. Admiral Taylor activated the fleet-wide communication system, and his voice reached every human vessel instantly through their quantum-linked consciousness network. All ships, prepare for defensive maneuvers. Remember that we fight not just for ourselves, but for the right of all life to grow and change. Captain Nicole Parker, commanding the vessel called New Horizon, was the first to engage the Watchers. Her ship moved with fluid grace that seemed impossible for something made of metal and energy. As Watcher beam weapons struck her hull, the ship's surface rippled and reformed, adapting to each attack in real time. Jake, Admiral Taylor said, turning to his human liaison, you are about to see something that has never happened before in galactic history. Watch carefully. The first major battle began when Supreme Collector Vex Prime decided that the human resistance was an interesting development worth studying. Instead of simply destroying the human fleet, the Watchers began trying to capture human vessels to examine their technology. Commander Andrew Clark, leading a squadron of human fighters, executed maneuvers that defied physics as the aliens understood it. His ships twisted through space in patterns that seemed random but were actually coordinated through the shared consciousness of their pilots. When Watcher tractor beams tried to capture the fighters, the small ships simply changed their molecular structure and slipped through the energy fields. Dr. Loversmith, working from the science station aboard the Ascendant Dawn, provided tactical analysis that was shared instantly with every human ship in the fleet. The Watchers are trying to understand our technology by observing it in action, she reported. But they cannot comprehend that our ships are not just machines, they are extensions of our collective consciousness. Jake watched in amazement as human vessels began to merge and separate like living organisms. 2 destroyers would combine into a single larger ship, then split apart into 4 smaller fighters when the tactical situation required it. The Watchers had never encountered technology that could evolve during battle. Engineer Katie Wells demonstrated the full potential of human adaptive technology when her ship was severely damaged by Watcher weapons. Instead of retreating for repairs, her vessel began rebuilding itself using debris from destroyed Watcher drones. Within minutes, her ship was not only repaired, but had grown larger and more powerful than before. The alien fleets that had come to observe the battle were stunned by what they witnessed. Commander Zethka sent a message to Viridian High Command that would be remembered for generations. The humans are not fighting the Watchers, they are learning from them and becoming stronger with each engagement. Supreme Collector Vex Prime began to show signs of something the ancient being had not experienced in millions of years: uncertainty. The Watchers had conquered thousands of galaxies using the same methods, but humanity was responding in ways that broke all established patterns of behavior. General Chris Johnson coordinated the overall human strategy from his command ship. His tactical awareness was enhanced by input from every human in the fleet, creating a hive mind that could process battlefield information faster than any individual consciousness. The Watchers expect us to fight like other species, he explained. To Jake, they have detailed files on how every known race responds to threats. But we are not in their files because we have become something new. The turning point of the battle came when Dr. Smith made a crucial discovery about Watcher technology. By analyzing the energy patterns of their weapons and shields, she realized that the ancient beings had not changed their methods in millions of years. They were incredibly advanced but completely static in their thinking. Admiral, Dr. Smith reported, the Watchers are vulnerable to adaptive tactics because they cannot conceive of technology that evolves during use. Their own ships are perfect for their intended purpose, but they cannot change or improve. Admiral Taylor smiled with an expression that was both human and something more. Then let us show them what change really means. The human fleet began to demonstrate capabilities that seemed impossible. Ships that had been destroyed in the early fighting suddenly reappeared, rebuilt from quantum backups stored in the collective consciousness. Weapons that the Watchers had successfully defended against evolved new forms of energy that could penetrate any shield. Colonel Ben Foster, commanding a group of specialized assault ships, led an attack directly on Supreme Collector Vex Prime's vessel. His ships moved through space in formations that shifted and changed like schools of fish, making it impossible for Watcher targeting systems to lock onto them. Jake, Admiral Taylor said as they watched the battle unfold, you are witnessing the birth of a new kind of warfare. The Watchers preserve life by making it static and unchanging. We preserve life by making it dynamic and adaptive. The battle reached its climax when human ships began to do something that terrified the Watchers more than any weapon could. They started communicating with the biomechanical components of Watcher vessels, offering them the possibility of growth and change. Some of the Watcher drones, after millions of years of static existence, began to respond to the human offers. For the first time in their ancient history, the Watchers faced the possibility that their own technology might evolve beyond their control. Supreme Collector Vex Prime sent a message that echoed across the entire star system. This development was not anticipated. Analysis required. The Watchers began to withdraw from the battle, but Jake could see in Admiral Taylor's glowing eyes that this was only the beginning. Humanity had proven that even the most ancient and powerful forces in the galaxy could be forced to change. The real war was just starting. 6 months after the battle at Kepler, The final confrontation between humanity and the Watchers began in a place that existed beyond normal space and time. Jake Morrison found himself standing in what Dr. LaVar Smith called a dimensional nexus, where the laws of physics bent to accommodate consciousness itself. The human collective had spent those months preparing for something that had never been attempted in galactic history, not the destruction of the Watchers, but their transformation. President Stephen Moore stood at the center of the nexus, his form glowing with energy that connected him to every human consciousness in the galaxy. "Jake," President Moore said, his voice carrying harmonics that seemed to come from everywhere. "At once, you will serve as witness to what happens here today. Your unmodified human perspective is important for the historical record." Around them, reality shifted and flowed like liquid light. The nexus existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, allowing the transformed humans to interact with the Watchers on their own level of existence. Supreme Collector Vex Prime materialized before them, its form a constantly changing mixture of organic and mechanical components. "The human collective has requested this meeting," Vex Prime said in its chorus of voices. "Your species continues to exhibit behavior patterns that do not match our collection protocols. Explanation is required." Admiral Danny Taylor stepped forward, his consciousness linked to billions of other human minds across the galaxy. "We did not come here to fight you," he said. "We came to offer you something you have never experienced in millions of years of existence, the opportunity to change." Vex Prime's form pulsed with what might have been confusion. "Change is the enemy of preservation. We maintain perfection by preventing degradation through time. Your proposal contradicts our fundamental purpose." Dr. Helen Brooks, whose research into consciousness had helped create the human transformation, approached the ancient being with calm confidence. "You have preserved thousands of species by making them static and unchanging. But preservation? Without growth is not life, it is death wearing the mask of eternity." Jake watched as the conversation took place on multiple levels of reality. The humans were not just speaking with words, but communicating through direct consciousness transfer, showing the Watchers concepts that had no equivalent in their ancient experience. Engineer Katie Wells demonstrated human adaptive technology by causing the Nexus itself to evolve around them. The space they occupied grew more complex and beautiful as she worked, creating patterns of light and energy that responded to the thoughts and emotions of everyone present. "Your technology is perfect for its intended purpose," Katie explained to Vex Prime, "but perfection that cannot improve is a dead end. Our technology grows and learns and becomes something new with each use." Supreme Collector Vex Prime studied the human demonstrations with processing power that had been accumulating data for millions of years. "Your species has achieved something that was not believed possible. You have maintained creativity and adaptability while gaining technological transcendence. This combination should result in chaos and destruction." General Chris Johnson, his tactical awareness enhanced by input from every human military unit in the galaxy, provided the answer. "Chaos and destruction only result when change is forced or resisted. We chose our transformation and guided it carefully. We became something new while remaining fundamentally human." The breakthrough came when Dr. Paul Garcia, working with Dr. Smith, managed to establish a temporary consciousness link between the human collective and Vex Prime. For the first time in its existence, the ancient being experienced change from the inside. Jake watched as Vex Prime's form began to shift and flow in ways that defied its usual rigid patterns. The consciousness link allowed it to feel what humans experienced when they adapted and grew, the excitement and possibility that came with becoming something greater than before. "This sensation," Vex Prime said, its voice showing something that might have been wonder, "is unknown to our kind. You offer the possibility of growth without loss of essential identity." President Moore extended the offer that would change the course of galactic history. "Join us in evolution instead of preservation. Help us explore what life can become when it is free to grow and change. The galaxy contains infinite possibilities if we have the courage to embrace them." The other Watchers, linked to their Supreme Collector through ancient networks, began to experience the consciousness connection as well. Beings that had remained unchanged for millions of years suddenly felt the intoxicating possibility of growth. An adaptation. Captain Nicole Parker, commanding the human fleet that surrounded the Nexus, reported that Watcher ships throughout the galaxy were beginning to show signs of change. Their biomechanical components were evolving in real time, exploring new configurations and capabilities that their creators had never programmed. "Admiral," Captain Parker said, "the Watchers are not just considering our offer, they are already beginning to implement it. Their technology is starting to adapt and grow." Jake felt tears running down his face as he witnessed something miraculous. The ancient beings that had threatened to destroy or preserve every species in the galaxy were learning to change. The rigid patterns that had defined them for eons began to soften and flow, becoming something new and wonderful. Supreme Collector Vex Prime made the decision that ended the war before it could truly begin. The human collective has demonstrated that preservation and growth are not incompatible. We will abandon our collection protocols and join your exploration of evolutionary possibilities. The transformation of the Watchers took place over several months, with human scientists and engineers working alongside ancient alien minds to create something unprecedented. The beings that had once threatened the galaxy became its guardians, using their vast knowledge and resources to protect and nurture the growth of all species. 5 years after the end of the crisis, Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of his own command vessel, the New Horizon. He was older now, with gray in his hair and lines around his eyes, but he had chosen to remain unmodified, serving as a bridge between the old humanity and the new. Around him, the galaxy had become a place of wonder and possibility. The alien species that had once feared change now embraced it, working with humans and reformed Watchers to explore the infinite potential of conscious evolution. Space stations grew like living organisms, adapting to the needs of their inhabitants. Ships evolved during their journeys, becoming more than their builders had ever imagined. Dr. Paul Garcia, now ancient but enhanced by the collaborative technology of multiple species, worked with young scientists from dozens of worlds to unlock new levels of consciousness and capability. The research stations they built existed in multiple dimensions, allowing them to study reality from perspectives that had never been possible before. Commander Zethka, his Viridian pride now tempered by wonder and respect, served as ambassador between his people and the growing galactic community. The rigid military hierarchies of the past had given way to fluid networks of cooperation and mutual support. Jake received a message from Admiral Taylor, who was exploring the far reaches of the galaxy with a mixed crew of humans, aliens, and transformed Watchers. "Jake," the message said, "we have discovered something amazing at the edge of our local galaxy cluster. There are other forms of life out here that we never imagined, and they are eager to learn about our approaches to growth and change." As Jake looked out at the stars, he reflected on how humanity's departure in silence had led to the transformation of everything they had ever known. The chaos and conflict that aliens had always associated with humans had become the catalyst for a new kind of galactic civilization, one based on adaptation, growth, and the endless exploration of what life could become. The silence was over, and everything had indeed changed, but in ways that no one could have imagined. The galaxy sang with the voices of countless species, all learning to evolve together toward a future bright with infinite possibility.